Do you know how to get better pricing, better techs, and better execution from your AV production partners? Well, let's get into it.
Welcome to the Event Pro Show, your ultimate guide to the world of corporate events. Whether you're a corporate event planner, experiential marketing pro, producer, technician, or anyone involved in creating exceptional events, this podcast is your go-to resource for valuable insights, expert tips, and inspiring stories from the industry's leading professionals.
Well, welcome back to the Event Pro Show. I am your host, Seth Macchi. I'm the CEO of LEMG, an event production company based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we specialize in producing corporate events all over the country, and we work with event planners all of the time. And you are joining us in part two of the AV Advantage. It's a 5-part series we're doing to essentially give event planners tips on how to work better with their AV production partners. In our last episode, which was episode 1, we explored why bringing your AV partner into the planning process early and how that can help spark better ideas, avoid costly redos, make the entire RFP process smoother. And we also talked about how collaborating with AV professionals from the start isn't just a nice to have. It's really essential for controlling your budget and delivering the best attendee experience, no matter your event size or format. And that's important. You can provide top quality no matter the size, no matter the format. That's really the goal. And if you find great partners, that's the goal. It doesn't matter what the budget is. Let's all do this together and make it amazing. I also showed some key questions to expect and be prepared for when you sit down with your AV partner for the first time about a project, so you're set up for success right from day one. If you missed that episode, make sure to check it out for tips on designing your event with AV in mind from the very beginning. You can go to theeventproshow.com, same place that you joined us for this episode. Today, we're moving on to part 2, where we'll be diving into practical strategies for doing more with your AV budget, so you can stretch your dollars further without sacrificing quality or creativity. It's probably the number one concern that I hear day in and day out from event planners is just their budgets are so stretched, their people are so stretched. So we're trying to figure out ways to help you do more with less. That's really the mandate for a lot of people right now and the time that we're in, and that's great. Let's do it together. So the goal is showing how early planning equals better pricing, better techs, and better execution. All right, so let's get started. So I want to talk really quick on why waiting costs more. I've talked about this before, but I want to talk about the economics that's the underpinning to that statement. So there's a few things, a couple primary things that are always going to be what you're paying for when you're working with an AV service provider. And one, the first one is labor. So that includes freelancers, internal technicians, load in, load out labor. It might include IATSE or union stagehands, but all of that is kind of the labor charge. And then you're going to talk about the gear piece of it, so the gear rental piece of it. Those two components, a lot of times are split kind of 50-50 on a well-built AV quote. And you have other pieces of that. There might be creative, and some development of maybe set pieces, but really just generally, that's kind of a 50-50. So let's talk about those things. Freelancer costs and labor costs. Why are labor costs going up to begin with? And let's take it from COVID. A lot of you were there. Some of you weren't, but pre-COVID, there was kind of a race to the bottom on AV pricing. There were a lot of AV providers and everybody was getting cheaper. Because of that, technicians' rates were kind of held at bay. And especially freelance rates were kind of held. They hadn't grown for quite a while. I would say probably the 5 years leading up to COVID, it was pretty stagnant because of this race to the bottom on AV pricing. There wasn't a lot of budget to raise freelancer rates. And in the AV industry, we really depend on freelancers. When we say that, they're independent contractors. And typically, a lot of them worked on staff with an AV company at some point. and developed their skills to the point where they realized they could make more if they jumped into the entrepreneurial pool and started their own LLC and started working for multiple AV providers. And we as AV providers are great with that because we get incredible technicians, and those technicians kind of are cross pollinating with ideas and concepts with other AV providers that we respect and are doing other work all over the place. So it ends up being a win-win for everybody. Well, going into COVID, when everything shut down, we lost a lot of that talent. Either they retired or they went into, I don't know, they became realtors or something, and moved out of the industry. And so we're short on talent. And then the ones that stayed could command a higher rate. And at the same time, a lot of rates, speaking of commanding higher rates, they went up 50 to 100% in a few years' time from COVID forward, because not only was there a demand on services, but I believe there was a pent up demand for rate increases anyways, because of the 5 years before COVID and all of that. So there is really a competition for great freelancers even to this day. And so knowing early why, if you wait, you have a show, but you wait to kind of bring your AV provider in, you're limiting their ability to get the top notch talent, because that talent books 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months out. So the earlier we know, the more talent we have to work with. The second is in the AV industry, uh, you know, 20, 25 years ago, toward, the beginning of my career, it was all about what AV provider owned all the gear internally. If we cross rented any gear, it was rarely for very specific things. All of that has really shifted. There are a lot of great third party gear providers out there right now that have high quality gear at competitive prices. So if you're hearing that your AV provider is cross renting a lot of gear, don't let that freak you out. That's actually how the model is moving, especially for a lot of younger companies coming in. They've realized they don't have to have this massive overhead of buying a ton of gear all at once. They can kind of ease into it and use the third party provider that's very trusted, does great work. But because of that, there is a bit of a demand, a scheduling demand on that equipment. And so, again, if you're waiting on booking your AV provider, you're limiting their ability to get the best prices on equipment and finding the best gear. And if the third minor point that I would want to bring up about why you shouldn't wait to bring your AV provider in is the rush charges. If you get too short, too close to the finish line before your event starts, there might be rush charges because you're generating more work for them to try to get your event planned and ready to go in a short amount of time. So those are three big reasons and the economic underpinning of why waiting costs you more. So the earlier you can bring in, you can get your technicians booked, the best technicians, you can get the best gear at the best prices, and rush charges aren't even a thing. So that's the pricing piece of waiting versus not waiting. The AV planning process I wish every client followed. I don't really have a timeline, but I do have kind of conceptually what is a great path to follow when you're looking for an AV provider is once your project is known. So you're given the concept, go ahead and bring, the concept that you have an event coming up, go ahead and bring your AV partner in, even if you don't have an RFP. If an RFP is required, go ahead and consult with your AV partner that you really trust on helping to build that. I believe that the best relationships eventually don't really require an RFP. You can bring in your AV partner that you trust way early on, and they'll help you come up with a solution that it works within your budget, within your requirements. Even if you're uncomfortable with that, have two AV partners that are your AV partners, and you bounce between, and that kind of mitigates that risk of being dependent on one partner. But if you can build relationships to not even require an RFP, first of all, it saves you a ton of time. And second off, they're better at building the concept of what you're trying to do than you are, usually, unless you come from an AV background. You're a planner with an AV background, which there are some, and I have friends that are, but not everybody is. And so building a relationship with an AV partner that can help you create the solution, that they know your end goal and they help you create it against your budget, would be the best way to go. The next step is once you know the event and you're looking at locations, go ahead and bring your AV partner to site surveys. And maybe not every site survey you do, but maybe the final 2 or 3, bring them. And they can help consult on what's the best place to do that event. And so after that, then the design begins based on the actual space. And so you're working in the correct order here. The design begins in the actual space. You come up with the design, then you get full quote. It's created with time to discuss and come to the best possible solution. So all of this requires time. This is why bringing someone in early allows you to do this. But at least 3 months, leave at least 3 months to book the best labor and equipment. So doing all of this ahead of time so that once you know the solution, the technicians you're going to need, all that kind of stuff, then your supplier, your vendor has time, maybe 3 months or more, to book the best labor and equipment. And then consistent communication all the way till load in. That's like the perfect scenario. Now, I know that's a luxury for some of you, for most of your events, or maybe all of your events, or some of your events. Sometimes it's just not that way. Hey, we need to get this event done in 4 weeks, so go get it, and I get that. But that doesn't always, the fire drill doesn't have to be the standard operating procedure. That could be the exception. So I want to talk a little bit about common time wasting mistakes. Speaking of when you have a short time frame, let's talk about things that do waste time that I've seen and how to avoid them. If you're sending out RFPs without enough specificity, I'm going to get into that in a second about RFPs. I'm going to get up into that in our next episode and with more specificity. But if you're sending out just super general RFPs, you're going to find that your quotes that you're getting back from potential vendors are kind of all over the place. And so you end up collecting non-similar quotes from various providers. And so then your team, or if you don't have a team, it's just you, have to go back and forth with each vendor and try to create similar quotes between vendors. You're trying to do all the translation of like, okay, is this 8 hours per day or 10-hour day? When are we in overtime? You're trying to figure out all these details. Well, if you can be really specific with your RFP, it creates a apples to apples quote across the line and saves you a ton of time. So the bottom line in all of these suggestions that I was just sharing with you is that early planning equals better pricing, better techs, and better execution. So I'm going to keep on with this. So be sure to join us next time for part 3 of the AV Advantage, where I'll be walking planners through how to get the proposal they actually want by writing clearer RFPs, more specificity. How can you do that? How can you standardize this thing so it's easier for you to make your final decision? Thank you for joining us on the Event Pro Show. You can join us weekly, where every other week I'll be providing tips like this that are specific to AV. And then on the alternate every other week, I bring in a guest that is somehow associated with corporate events. I have so many friends in the corporate events space that I want you just to know, you should know. And so this could be somebody talking about food and inclusion and talking about venues, CVBs or venues, or talking about catering, or talking about floral, or just all sorts. There are so many people that you need to know. And it's a fun show. It's a fun way of sharing tips and tricks by people that you don't often get to talk to. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on the next time. If you need AV help, go to lemg.live, and we would love to work with you. Thank you so much. The Event Pro Show is a production of LEMG, video by Nick Barrett, audio and post-production by Prince Thompson. You can learn more about us at lemg.live.